Hi, in this video I am going to talk about biodiversity. We all are very familiar with the term biodiversity. It simply means diversity in biology. And in conversation we use this term to represent number of different varieties of organisms we have. In this video I am going to talk about what are the levels of biodiversity. So the biodiversity, we can define it as biological diversity or simply the variety of life on earth. What are the varieties we have on earth? That's biodiversity means. Here we have a diagram which shows the relative diversity of all life forms. We can see that almost half of the diversity goes to insects. Then we have animals, then comes plants, fungi, protists, bacteria and archaea. This is a distribution of biodiversity in the planet Earth. But the thing is that this diagram represents the known biodiversity. The biodiversity we already know. The based on the documented or classified scientifically named organisms. So far, we have named about 1.8 million species in this earth. That's like 18 lakhs individuals in different species of organisms. But the strange thing is that the earth is estimated to have about 10 to 100 million organisms, like 1 to 10 crores. So we know only the 18 lakhs. There is at least 10 to 100 crore organisms need to be documented. So we know only, at the maximum, we know only the 90% of the organisms in this earth. We don't know much. So the diagram represents the known biodiversity. We already know the bacterial and archaea communities are so diverse. It is more diverse than the plants and animals and insects combined together. That's what the three kingdom classification means. In the three kingdom classification, we have only three kingdoms. One kingdom is archaea, second kingdom is bacteria, third kingdom is eukarya. The kingdom eukarya includes fungi, protists, plants, animals, and insects. But the size of that kingdom is smaller than the bacteria and archaea. So much is need to be studied about bacteria and archaea. So this is biodiversity, and there is a difference between non-biodiversity and the biodiversity that yet to be estimated. And biodiversity has three different levels. First level is genetic diversity, secondly we have species diversity, and finally we have ecosystem diversity. I'm going to explain each of these levels. Firstly, we have genetic diversity. Genetic diversity is amount of genetic variation that occurs within and between population. We are talking about a single species, how it is variable. The members in a species, how they are diverse. Let me give you an example. Let's look at the mangoes. We have different types of mangoes and mango trees around us. The organism is mango tree. They produce these different types of mangoes. If you collect the mangoes from the state Kerala, you can find so many different varieties. Each and every different types belongs to a single species, but they are different. Maybe they are different their morphology, maybe they are different their fruit, the different shape, different size, different flavor. They are different. Even if it belongs to a single species, there is a variation within a species in a same population. The population of mango trees within the Kerala, they are different. So genetic variation occurs within a population. The population of mango tree in the Kerala, there's a variation. But if you compare one mango tree from Kerala with that of maybe or the mango trees from Kerala with the mango trees from West Bengal, you can still see a difference. The two, they are way much different than the two mango trees in the Kerala. Or you can compare the mango trees in India with that of mango trees in Africa. They are different because there is a variation within a species and within a population and between population. Okay, that's genetic diversity. Each organisms of a species varies. Secondly, we have species diversity. That simply means number and relative abundance of different species in a community. That's what really we mean when we say biodiversity. in the common conversation we say biodiversity, that means what different number of how much different number of species present in a particular location. So that's species diversity. It includes all type of life forms. It includes all type of animals we have in a particular area, maybe all type of plants, all type of fungus, the microorganism, virus, everything included in this species diversity. If you want to measure the species diversity in an area, we just want to count the number of different species we have, and in each species we need to count how much individuals are there. That's what's called species diversity. And finally, we have the ecosystem diversity. That means the diversity in structure and function within an ecosystem. I'm sure that you already know what's the definition and everything for the ecosystem, which include the biotic and abiotic factors like the living organisms and their physical environment, and we also study the interaction between the living beings and the physical environment in the ecosystem when it comes to an ecosystem. So if an ecosystem need to be diverse, it should have different communities. The communities need to be diverse. The physical structure, the landscape should be diverse. So when we really say biodiversity, the actually we mean the ecosystem diversity. An ecosystem where different communities are there, different landscapes are there, different types of single individual communities contribute to form a really diverse ecosystem. This figure shows the relationship between these three levels of biodiversity. We have the ecosystem diversity. As we told before, ecosystem diversity include different communities and different types of landscapes. If you say take one ecosystem, it may have the freshwater ecosystem communities, maybe they have the coastal communities, mountain communities. If it is connected in a single landscape or a single area, that ecosystem is more diverse. Some other ecosystem may not be that diverse. It may have only one type of communities over there. So the biodiversity really mean ecosystem diversity. If an ecosystem need to be diverse, its community need to be diverse. If a community need to be diverse, the species should be diverse. So for an ecosystem need to be diverse. If you want an ecosystem diverse ecosystem, we need species diversity there. There should be different species, different types of species in all forms. Not only the number of different species, the number of individuals in a species is also important. And if a species need to be diverse, there should be genetic diversity within that population. So this is how it's work. So we have genetic diversity. So the genetically diverse groups of organisms form the species diversity. Then finally, it along with the different landscapes, it forms ecosystem diversity. This is a pictorial representation of the concept. Firstly, we have the genetic diversity. In this figure, they shows mouse. Each mouse in the populations are different, just like the humans. We can see the diversity in human population very easily. If you take some people from Kerala, they are maybe look different than people from Assam. There's a genetic variation, and within a population, in the state, we take people, two people from Kerala, they are not identical. Very rarely only you can take, if you take two identical twins, they will be similar, but otherwise if you take two random people from Kerala, they are different. They may be different, their height may be different, their size different, their complexion. You can find so many physical and mental factors, parameters, they are differ. That's a variation within a population. And if you take one person from Kerala and one person from Assam, you can still see more difference. Or if you say take one person from Kerala and another person from England, you see even more. So, or if you compare one person from Kerala with that of Africa, you are seeing more difference. That's a difference within a population, within a species. The whole these peoples, we say, if in Africa, if it, even it is in England or Assam or in Kerala, this all belongs to a single species, but the individuals varies within a population and outside the population. So that's the genetic diversity, and it leads to the species diversity. Species diversity is basically number of species present in an ecosystem. Like we have here, they show the mouse, they have frogs, then some insects, small trees, shrubs, large trees, grass, everything contribute to the species diversity. Finally, we have the ecosystem diversity. Here we have mountain ecosystem, then the terrestrial ecosystem, We have the freshwater ecosystem. If there are so many different landscapes that come together in an ecosystem, that will be more diverse. There will be more number of species. There will be more number of variations within a species. Okay, so this is the concept of biodiversity. Now I am going to explain each of these levels of biodiversity in little bit more detail. Firstly, we have genetic variation or genetic diversity. Genetic diversity is basically genetic variation within and between populations. If you compare the genetic diversity or the use of this genetic diversity, you can take plants just like we took mango trees. What's the use of this diversity? Basically, we are asking a question: what's the use of having diversity, genetic diversity within a population? You can, you already know that same plants of a single species vary in characteristics. Maybe they vary in their fruits, the type, size, and everything of the fruit. You clearly see the rambutans. The It's a favorite example. Like, even if we have these rambutan trees, the old rambutans may not be some fruits of some trees may not be that big, but the hybrid varieties used to have the bigger fruits. Just like that, the plants varies very much between the individuals of the same species. If we say an example, the rice is a very diverse plant. It has so many varieties in throughout the world. But during the end of 20th century, a virus emerged, just like the coronavirus. At that time, what came is like grassy stent virus. Grassy stent virus infect these rice plants and reduce productivity, and yield is also reduced to a great extent. And over in the universe, about 7,000 different plant varieties are sensitive to this virus. If the virus attack, the plant loses its yield. So the farmer is used to lose whole crop due to this infection. But what they found that Indian rice is resistant to that virus. So what people did, they take the original their own sensitive rice plant, and they high breed it with Indian rice. And they found, they due to the as a result of this breeding, they created a hybrid seed variety, rice variety, which has all the adaptation qualities of the original rice and the virus resistant property of Indian rice. If we have different varieties of such uh, plants, we can easily find members, the variants which is able to resist particular infection or virus. So the point is that if a species is more genetically diverse, they are more stable in terms of for survival during the evolution. If a population is so small and less diverse, what happens is that there is a chance of extinction. It may lose during evolution. So the point is, for a species need to be stable and survive during the evolution, it need to be more diverse. Otherwise, it may lose its biodiversity. If the population getting smaller, it lose its biodiversity. Eventually, it got threatened and endangered. That's why the cheetah populations in the world is decreasing so fastly, because the population size is low, variation is less, so it may get extincted. So second level of biodiversity is species diversity. Species diversity is variety of species in an ecosystem or throughout the biosphere. So it means the number of different species in a particular ecosystem or throughout the biosphere, throughout the earth. How much uh, different species we have. We simply say it as global diversity and local diversity. Global diversity is the number of different species globally, what we have. Local diversity is the diversity within a particular ecosystem. So we have global and a local biodiversity, that's a variety of species in an ecosystem or throughout the biosphere. And the thing is that the species diversity is decreasing very rapidly. So many different species are getting endangered, and extincted. If you take the global trend, 22% of mammals are threatened, and 31% of amphibians in the world is threatened. Uh, as I already told, only 90% of biodiversity is already known. No, not 90, only 10% of biodiversity is already known. At the maximum, we know only 10% of biodiversity. After this 10, we almost lost 20-25% of biodiversity. So that's a terrible situation. And this biodiversity is more in endemic species. Endemic species are species whose distribution is limited to a small area. If a species see only in particular ecosystem, that's called an endemic species. There are so many examples for this endemic species. One example is this fish. It's called Miscarla. Its scientific name is Pundius denzoni. It is distributed only in fast-flowing waters of Western Ghats. One of the places where this fish is so abundant is Chalakudi River. But the thing is that it is only seen in this Western Ghats. Outside the Western Ghats, it's very difficult to find. No one has found this organism outside this Western Ghats. So this fish only lives here. If the fish population in the Western Ghats got extincted, the whole organism will get extincted. But the case, if you say they take the case of the mango trees, which is globally distributed, the case is different. If the mango trees in Kerala extincted, but we can take the mango trees from other places of the country or other parts of the world. So this type of organism, which is distribution is very limited to a particular geographical area or particular ecosystem, that's called endemic species. Uh, or if an area which has so many different endemic species, we say that area shows endemism. If an area or a ecosystem which has so many endemic species only unique to that ecosystem, that ecosystem has endemism because huge number of new species or unique species are seen there. That's called endemism. There are so many areas in the globe which has endemism. One such as example is Galapagos Islands, the island where the Darwin goes and found the theory of evolution. Galapagos Island is a has endemism because so many species are unique to that particular island. Or we can say Western Ghats is a place of endemism. So many species are unique to Western Ghats, which is seen in no other places. So that's endemism. When we think about species diversity, the species diversity is not uniformly distributed all the world. This is a map of the world and it is color coded. The color is based on the number of species. You can see the color code here. It represents the number of species per 10,000 kilometers square. And if it is red in color, that means more than 5,000 species seen in that area. You can see the areas like red in color. They have the different shades of blue and green to represent the number of organisms. What we can understand from this figure is that the diversity is not uniformly distributed. If you see the polar region, the species diversity is so poor. Here also the species diversity is poor. Then when we come from the poles to the equator, this is the equatorial line, the diversity generally increases. So there is a trend. The biodiversity is maximum in the equator, the tropical region, and when we move to the poles, either south or north pole, the biodiversity decreases. So there is a pattern, and this pattern is applicable for the terrestrial organism, ocean, in the ocean, and in the freshwater ecosystem. The all ecosystems shows a trend like the biodiversity will be maximum at the tropical equatorial region and it decreases when we move towards the poles. I'm sure that you have heard the name biodiversity hotspots. This image show the biodiversity hotspots, 25 biodiversity hotspots around the world. These are the areas which contain unusually large concentration of species. So many species are seen here. That's why it's called the biodiversity hotspots. If you look carefully, you can see the 17, number 17, which is the Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. It is one of the biodiversity hotspots, and most probably most of you are right now sitting in a biodiversity hotspots. So, as I told before, biodiversity hotspots contain unusually large concentration of species. So many different species are seen in a very small area. If you look into the uh, numbers, the 25 biodiversity hotspots in the universe consumes, occupy only 1.4 percentage of land area. Only 1.4 percentage of land area is occupied by these biodiversity hotspots. But it contains 44 percentage of all plant species and 35 percentage of all terrestrial vertebrates are living in this 1.4 percentage of land area. That means it is so rich in biodiversity. So when we think about the conservation of species diversity, the international agencies used to concentrate on this biodiversity hotspots, because if you conserve these little areas, we can conserve a huge number of organisms from extinction. Finally, we have ecosystem diversity. It defined as the variation of biosphere's ecosystem. As as we already know, ecosystem consists of living and non-living components. The biotic and abiotic components basically interact with each other. So, in a diverse ecosystem, there should be species rich. The community composition should be good. In that ecosystem, network of community interacting among the populations. In a by concept, in a diverse ecosystem should have different types of landscapes and different types of sub ecosystems. If we say ecosystem is diverse, we should have different compartments or different varieties of ecosystems. Maybe freshwater ecosystem along with the terrestrial ecosystem, along with the mountain ecosystem, along with the coastal ecosystem. All these ecosystems are in a uninterrupted manner. Organism from one ecosystem can freely move to the another ecosystem. There is no barrier between them. Such ecosystems are more diverse. Different types of organisms are seen here. There is interaction between different levels. The mountain ecosystem is interacting with the freshwater ecosystem, or the freshwater ecosystem is interacting with the terrestrial ecosystem. So there is a continuous interaction between these organisms. There is a food web in that food chain is happening there. The species diversity will be more. Such ecosystems are more diverse. If an ecosystem consists of a single type of landscape, maybe the freshwater only, or the ocean only, that may not be that diverse as a ecosystem which contain different types of sub landscapes. In an ecosystem, if the ecosystem is more diverse, maybe they are more resistant to extinction. Suppose if we have a small ecosystem which consists of only small group of individuals, if in such ecosystem, let's say a insect got extincted because of so many reasons, these insects got extincted, and in the primary sense we can say, oh, one insect is gone, but that's not the case. Maybe this insect is a pollinator, the only pollinator for a particular plant. So what happens if this insect got extincted? Eventually the plant got extincted because of the absence of pollinators. Then what happens? Maybe so many other insects and birds or animals are depending on the particular plant as for food or shelter. So if the plant got extincted, so many other organisms got extincted. But if in a rich ecosystem, that means the very huge, very large, diverse ecosystem, maybe there are so many insects are doing the same purpose. If one insect got extincted, that may not affect it very much. But anyway, extinction is not good for any ecosystem. And there are other levels of diversity. We already talk about genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Another type of diversity is called phylogenetic diversity. It is basically measure the relationship between organisms in a community. We already know what's a community is. Community is a group of different species. If a community consists of related species, we cannot say that is very diverse. If a community of in a particular ecosystem, if you have a community which contain different plants, but all these plants are closely related, maybe pine, if you have a pine forest, in these most of the trees are pines, so the individuals are closely related, or maybe pines and the plant trees related to pines, only those type of trees are seen there. That means that it's not that diverse. If a phylogenetically diverse uh, community, what we would see is like there are different type of trees, different types of bacteria. The organisms in this particular community are not closely related, they are distantly related. So that's what's called a phylogenetic diversity. The phylogenetic diversity can be high or low. It's better to have a high phylogenetic diversity. The organism should, in order to have a high phylogenetic diversity, the organisms or individual species in a population should be distantly related rather than closely related. That's one of the reason when we compare the plantations. We have so many plantations in our state. We have the teakwood plantations, plantations, or oil palm plantations. The problem with that type of plantations is that the community is dominated by a single member, not so many different types of trees or the species are seen there. So phylogenetic diversity is another level, but I am not classifying it as a major level. Another type of diversity is landscape diversity. That is the group of interacting ecosystems within a landscape. As I told before, the landscape diversity means the there should be different ecosystems are interacting with each other. That means should not be interrupted by oceans, rivers, or by the human civilization. Mm, Such type of things should not happen within that landscape. So landscape diversity is different types of landscape or the ecosystem possibilities within a ecosystem. So that's all for the this video. So what I told is like there are three different major levels of ecosystem biodiversity. Those are genetic diversity, then species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.